We are joined now by Erik McKinney, the publisher of WeAreSC.com. That is On3's USC site. He is not 4 or 5 plays away. He's right there. But Lincoln Riley keeps telling us this team is 4 or 5 plays away. Erik, that's my main question. Like every time I've seen him talk toward the end of the season, he keeps saying that. Do you think that's something he's just saying, or does he not actually realize how far away this program is from being successful where they've got to go?
I think that what he's been consistent in is he's been consistent in sort of manifesting positivity ever since the very first day he got to USC. He talked about kind of the long game goal, where this program can get to, how good it can be, all of that kind of stuff. I think he understands. He got rid of Alex Grinch before the end of the season. I think he understands how big the hill is to climb, I think, at this point. But what he projects is positivity to his team. No part of me can sort of wrap my head around the idea that he thinks this program is right there, is inches away. I think that he knows at this point the kind of offseason that they need now going forward, because it was that the end of this season was just a train wreck. He's not wrong that in a few of those games you're a play or 2 or 3 away. The flip side is you're a play or 2 or 3 away from losing some of those by 20 plus. I mean, it really was that kind of season for them. And I think you have to really take ownership of the fact that you didn't make any of those plays. And the fact that maybe you can put yourself in a position to do it and then not do it, that is a bad thing. That is a bad habit to have as a program. And it's one that you clearly have right now.
So as you mentioned, they fired Alex Grinch midseason. They need a new defensive coordinator. But I think one of the things that showed up on Saturday was how bad they are on both lines of scrimmage. That's somewhere UCLA just bullied them on both sides of the ball. What do they do about the offensive line?
So it started this past class. They brought in 5 true freshman offensive linemen in the 2023 class. They have a handful of pretty talented, it looks like, guys in the 2024 class. So you're starting to recruit that. If you go back and look at the 18, 19, 20, 21, those offensive line classes, they're just littered with misses and guys you thought, okay, well, he's maybe a developmental guy, but you've got maybe one guy in each of those classes that have stuck and done it. They had to rely on 3 transfer portal additions this offseason, and you felt like they would get more out of them than they did. And so against UCLA, they lost Gino Quinones early in the year. They weren't playing with Jarrett Kingston, who came down from Washington State. So that was a line without 2 guys that you thought were starters this season. But that was varsity JV, that game. The way UCLA's defensive line, just like you said, kind of manhandled the USC offensive line. That's something where you need really quick development from that 23 class. I think you go back into the portal and try again with an offensive lineman. Emmanuel Pregnon came in from Wyoming. He's a younger guy, so you can develop him a little bit. That 2022 team that Lincoln Riley took over had holes everywhere, but the offensive line was pretty good. Those were veteran players who had played a lot of football, and that was a group that kind of held everything together. Obviously, Caleb Williams was Caleb Williams all last year and has been throughout his USC career, but that's not something that they had along the offensive line this year. You had all 5 guys playing new positions and nobody playing next to someone that they had played with before. So that's a big lift this offseason, is figuring out that offensive line and who's going to be first your frontline starters, and then also the depth, because they had one injury early in the year, and you could tell it just decimated that line.
So you mentioned Caleb Williams. What do you think Caleb Williams' legacy at USC will be, because he's such an unusual situation where, he spent his freshman year at Oklahoma. He comes in, he wins the Heisman Trophy, and then this season, and that's pretty much it.
It's weird. It feels unfinished. It feels almost like Drake London, I think, was kind of in the same sort of category, that COVID year where you're kind of cut short, and then when there's an injury too, obviously, not full health against Utah in the championship game last year. It just feels unfinished. Like you said, it really does feel unfinished. Matt Leinart got to hold up a national championship trophy. Carson Palmer, these are the previous two Heisman winners at quarterback. Carson Palmer got to finish in the Orange Bowl, and you just felt this ascension of the program. And here they go, and these guys were huge parts of it. And Caleb Williams to again throw for almost 400 yards against UCLA when your running game is like actively working against you, and your offensive linemen are kind of waving guys through. Not the best situation to end it. He chose not to speak to the media afterward, and so yeah, it kind of ends with this, poof, and then he's gone. But as it goes on, if USC and Lincoln Riley can build this program, the Heisman Trophy is what it is. People do not blame Caleb Williams. They look at kind of him succeeding despite what he did.
Yeah.
And the guys around him not playing up to his level. So USC fans, there's some stuff that maybe you wanted him to run a little bit more, take a little bit more control, fix some of that stuff where he's capable of just playing kind of one-man football. But if he goes back to the Coliseum, he's going to get ovations. I mean, he's going to be remembered as one of the great USC players, one of the great USC quarterbacks.
So we're assuming he's not back. I know what his dad has said, but let's be real here. He's the number one pick in the draft. Miller Moss and Malachi Nelson still on the roster. Malachi Nelson was a big-time recruit. He was a freshman this year. It doesn't sound like they feel like he's the heir apparent necessarily. So what do they try to develop? Somebody they have? Do they try to go into the portal?
I think so. So Lincoln Riley was asked specifically about that. You typically take a quarterback every year. There isn't one in this class. They've got a big-time guy committed down the line a little bit. So he was asked about the portal, and he was kind of non-committal about it. Still a long way to go. Not going to say we won't, not going to say we will. Lincoln Riley coaches Heisman Trophy winning number one overall picks at quarterback. If he doesn't believe he has that in one of those two guys, he will absolutely, I feel, go get somebody out of the portal that he feels really good about. USC fans and for us watching Miller Moss, fully competent. I mean, he's been in the system now. He's a really smart player, team guy. He can run a little bit. He's got a little bit of athleticism. He throws it well. I don't think there's any sense of this offense is going to crater if you go with Miller Moss. Malachi Nelson's got there's some, weight room stuff, and that was stuff that you knew from him as a high school player, but he can throw it. He missed this past spring with an injury. And so, how much work did he get during the season? And that's really where the past 2 years of USC not being able to put enough kind of blowouts and separate, you thought that those two guys, or at least Miller Moss, would just get more time on the field to kind of show, I can operate in this offense. And when they couldn't do that and Caleb Williams had to take games all the way to the end, you lost that chance to see if they really could operate in the offense. Right now, if I had to guess, and it's a yes or no, I think that they absolutely look into the portal to see what's in there. But you can target a lot of guys, and then it becomes this sort of bidding war of, can that team keep them, and do they actually jump in and all of that? You know how it is with quarterbacks. So we'll see how that plays out. I have to think that they'll definitely take an eye to it, because again, Lincoln Riley coaches slam dunk quarterbacks. So those are the guys that want to play for Lincoln Riley.
Well, and to your point, he's had 3 Heisman winners. All of them were transfers. Now, Caleb Williams never played for anybody but Lincoln Riley, but he did transfer. Baker Mayfield transferred, Kyler Murray transferred, and Jalen Hurts, who is a Heisman finalist, transferred. So yeah, he'll go get somebody if he needs to. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. Who are you hearing in terms of potential defensive coordinators?
It's been really quiet from USC's side. We had a report earlier on the site with Pete Kwiatkowski at Texas, potentially being a name. Zach Arnett is a guy whose name kind of popped up before he was
got fired
at Mississippi State, and now that he's kind of out there, that's kind of a name I think that makes a lot of sense. Look, you don't want a defensive guy from the Mike Leach coaching tree, but that's not where he comes from. He comes from, defensive stock where he learned it. And then he got to operate a little bit across from that offense, which I think it's important to have that kind of idea of how to run a defense opposite and Lincoln Riley's offense is not Mike Leach's offense, but there's roots and familiarity. If USC fans could pick, Jim Leonard would be the guy, the former Wisconsin defensive coach, an analyst at Illinois now. Certainly there's enough from what we've heard, kind of money floating around, maybe not inside USC, but outside with people that are like, hey, that's a guy that we can talk to. Everything you hear about him is not Los Angeles, neither coast. And certainly the NFL, you assume, is going to have an eye on him. Maybe and I don't know if he's a wild card because he's affiliated with USC athletic director Jen Cohen from their time at Washington. Jimmy Lake is with the Rams right now, so it's not a big jump for him to just come across to USC. But he's a guy who, again, off-field, on-field questions, background check, all of that kind of stuff would need to clear. But he's a guy who's run a defense, run a team, and could recruit incredibly well for USC in Los Angeles. And so he's kind of an intriguing name for me at this point. But like I said, USC kept the Lincoln Riley search silent. And these are different people running this one now, but there's been a pretty concerted effort to keep this one quiet as well. And that has not been a strength of USC throughout its history.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Pete Kwiatkowski at Texas also was at Washington. So he and Jen Cohen would be familiar. And the Arnett thing, you're exactly right. He's a Rocky Long guy who happened to work with Mike Leach. So that, that even more Southern California bona fides there. But it does sound like they have some choices. As far as this next couple of weeks goes, because they got to close out this recruiting class, is there anybody that you feel like they have a chance to flip that we're going to go, wow? Or is there anybody that they're worried might get flipped?
So with NIL now and the way teams can just come in at the last second, you stop kind of talking about, oh, this coach recruited this guy really well and they got in and developed a relationship and all that. I mean, it could be the last 20 minutes and you get a phone call and it's, hey, we've got this much money available for you now. Do you want to come in? So I've sort of stopped looking at, who are they developing relationships with and what's this kid saying and all that stuff. Because you hear kids say, I'm 10,000% locked in. And then they take an unofficial visit 24 hours before signing day, and it's, well, see you later. Cameron Fountain, I think, is a defensive lineman who has looked around. And the farther you go away from Los Angeles in terms of committed guys right now, maybe the tougher it is to keep them in this class. As far as bringing somebody in, Alex Grinch was really difficult to recruit against. What that defense had done under him, the problems they'd had. If they bring a guy in, I think they could develop some interest pretty quickly. There's a lot of guys in that Texas A&M class. If that starts to fall apart a little bit, Draylon Miller to Anthony Smith, those are guys that came, took visits. Gabriel Relaford is in there too. So they've shown a lot of interest in there. It'll be interesting to see kind of if that class holds together through the coaching change, or what USC can do there.
Erik McKinney, you're going to be very, very busy these next couple of weeks. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.